cheating husband and my loneliness. It hurts when I pull back the curtains and look out the window, but I want to see my family and remind myself of the consequences of bad choices. My ex-husband lives across the street. His house has a pool. I can't say no to our boys going there and having fun. We don't have an official visitation schedule. My ex-husband and I often talk about what is on the boys' schedule each day and decide who takes them where and when and who feeds them and when. That's all we talk about. I see the boys have started inviting the girls over. Their testosterone must be at its peak. They are bragging about their funny dives and big splashes. It seems to be working. The girls are giggling. The girls. They're only 13 or 14, but their bodies look older. I hope Rob talked to the boys. Someone might need to talk to him. That fitness instructor, since she's in her 40s, she's an old lady to the boys, looks amazing in her bikini. I'm thinking of the old analogy of flossing more than what she's wearing. Am I exaggerating? Maybe. Am I jealous? Yes, I am jealous. Technically, our kids live with me since I have primary custody, but I don't have a pool. They usually sleep and eat here. Most of their clothes are here. The boys are used to living in the house across the street. We were family friends with the family that used to live there. They had a boy and a girl about the same age as our boys. The kids practically lived in both houses. Misty and Carl James were close to becoming surrogate parents for our children. Many people thought Misty and Carl had 4 children. Sounds like we had a good life? Yeah. So what went wrong? The answer is, I became a cheater. That's definitely not a statement of pride. It's just a fact. Well, I wasn't a cheater for very long, but long enough to ruin my life and hurt my family. It took many therapy sessions to realize what I did, and more importantly, why I did it. If I tell you my story, it will help me. Maybe it will help someone prevent them from suffering from what happened to me and my family. My name is Susan Lawrence. I was married to Rob Lawrence. We have 2 boys, David and Eli, who are now 13 and 14 years old, respectively. I worked at a publishing house as an editorial assistant. Rob ran his own security business for homes and offices. We were married for almost 20 years, although for the first 4 years we only met between business trips. He was a military deputy. We met on a blind date. I was attractive enough to make my own dates, but Amy needed someone for her boyfriend's friend. My friend Amy was dating an MP who was trying to convince his buddy Rob to join. Although Amy and her boyfriend never married, my friendship with Rob blossomed. Knowing that he was going away for a long time, there was an urgency to determine our relationship. We wanted to make a big decision, one way or another, before he left. We got married. Rob and I were in agreement on almost everything: politics, religion, children, and fidelity. The glow of marriage kept me from temptation while I waited for him, even though I had several active suitors. Rob left again after his first 2-year stint because of a re-enlistment bonus. This had a big impact on our ability to run our household. It was hard on our relationship, but we made it through. Shortly after Rob returned, we decided to have children. I worked for 4 years, and he got a job with a security company after being laid off. My firm was willing to let me work out of our home during the last part of my pregnancy and the first few months afterward. We soon had 2 babies a year apart. Life was good, not easy, but good. When the boys went to school, I started working more in the office. When the security company Rob worked for decided to sell its share to one of the largest national firms, Rob had the idea that he could run his own security business. His father gave him startup money. I was scared because of the financial risk, but I had faith in my husband. His retirement was friendly, and several guys told Rob to call them when his business got big enough to need more employees. We huddled and sacrificed for about 5 years before the business really started to grow. Ironically, the impetus for growth was the increased interest in equipment that allowed people to spy on their allegedly cheating spouses. I kept working. I enjoyed it. I was getting good annual raises. The editing business was strong, as everyone seemed to have a book they had to write. I loved to read, and it was important to me that my opinion was valued. I managed to improve quite a few books, although many I rejected. I must now conclude that this is when I began to develop an inflated value of who I was in relation to my husband. Neither Rob nor I expressed any serious complaints about our lives. Our friendship, household chores together, finances, parenting, and sex life were quite satisfactory. Since things were going so well, we had gotten used to the routine. I didn't realize how dangerous it could be. The problem with Rob came to me very gradually. By the time we started taking each other for granted, my attitude was becoming more and more negative. Why am I the only one doing the dishes? How come he or the boys get to choose where to eat? Why doesn't he ever say sweet things like he did when he was courting me? Why am I only recognized on my birthday, Mother's Day, Valentine's Day, and Christmas? Why do we always have sex the same way? These were some of the many ways I began to denigrate my marriage. But I only asked my questions to myself. I never brought it up to Rob. I thought that if he really loved me as much as I loved him, he would understand what was wrong. Why was it up to me to solve our problems? My resentment grew. I became depressed but continued to fulfill my role in the house. I had a routine that I began to see as a rut I was stuck in. No one seemed to notice the change in me. For my own sake, I turned more and more to work. When I was content with my home life, I didn't pay much attention to the personal compliments I received at the office. Now I sought them out and treasured them. I started dressing more provocatively. I called it more stylish when my husband noticed the change in my closet. The comments, stares, and flirting in the office intensified, and I loved it. I was getting more attention. Then I made a decision that turned my life upside down. Hal, my boss, and I were working on getting the book ready for publication. The deadline was almost impossible. We realized we would have to work late Thursday night to be able to submit the final manuscript on Friday. One of the reasons I didn't mind working late was that Hal was one of my strongest admirers and flirtation partners. That didn't stop him from being a handsome man, even though he was married, but neither did I. When we were done, Hal exclaimed, "I'm afraid I've spoiled your plans for a home-cooked dinner." Don't worry. On Thursday nights, Rob orders the food, which is pizza. He and the boys watch college soccer on Thursday nights. They don't even notice if I'm there or not. If you were my wife, I would never let you out of my sight. Forgive my double negativity. I felt a nudge in my heart. I was flattered. I was aroused. I stumbled and said, "Thank you. Sometimes I feel like my family doesn't appreciate me." Why did I say that to him? "Please let me take you out to dinner to make up for missing yours." I agreed, and we went somewhere not far from the office. It was a fish place, and we had a bottle and a half of wine before we decided it was time for us to leave. Lunch went pleasantly. We told each other about our home life and laughed about things that only teenagers think of. We both expressed a certain lack of spark in our relationship with our spouses. I think we both realized what a dangerous path we had chosen, but we kept going down it. Hal dropped me off at my car. It felt like a first date, so I kissed him in appreciation. The kiss lasted well beyond a thank you kiss and not very far from an in-the-bedroom kiss. When we parted, we looked at each other with a "what did we just do?" look. I'm sure we both knew that wasn't the only time we kissed. On the drive home, there was no way I could get Hal, the kiss, and all the possibilities out of my head. It was so different and so much more exciting than what happened day after day at home. It had been almost 20 years since I had kissed another man. I was getting scared. Would Rob notice how much I was enjoying my time with Hal? Could I legitimately say that nothing really happened? That would be true from a physical standpoint, as we each had a few friends where kisses were in the hello and goodbye moments. I walked into the house and heard a ball game going on in the study where the big TV was. "I'm home!" I shouted. I don't know what they yelled back other than asking if I wanted pizza. "No thanks. I got a snack at the fast food place." Why did I lie about that? In retrospect, I think it was the beginning of a psychological removal that allowed me to view lying to my husband as more acceptable. I left the boys, including my husband, to play ball and went to bed. It was hard to sleep, but the attraction from Hal's kiss had subsided. I was almost asleep when Rob literally flew into my bed. "Hey, baby, the Wildcats won. What are my chances of scoring with you tonight?" "Oh, my God. How old are you? I have to work tomorrow. Now leave me alone." Rob didn't say anything, but left the bed and the bedroom. I was still angry with him for a few minutes, and then I felt guilty for being too rude. Guilt couldn't make me get up and go apologize. I made myself comfortable on my pillow, hoping to see Hal in my dreams. I should have realized that once you start down the path of deception, you inevitably change your behavior with loved ones who trust you. Waking up a little late the next morning, I saw no sign of Rob sleeping in our bed. I walked into the guest room and saw that he had spent the night there. Hurrying downstairs to make breakfast for the boys, I saw them eating breakfast at the kitchen table. "Hi, Mom. Dad told me to let you sleep in. He made us breakfast before he left for work." I went to get a cup of coffee. I needed sleep after working late last night. I realized I was trying to justify the time away from home, even though no one had asked me about it. I felt like both the prosecutor and the defense attorney were fighting in my head. Soon the boys were out the door to wait for the bus. I finished getting ready for work. I intentionally chose one of my older, more conservative outfits. I guess I was trying to make up for my recent extortionate extramarital attention from Hal. I felt I had to hide what I'd done. A less sexy dress would help. I avoided Hal until our meeting with the senior editor at 11:06. Hal and I presented the manuscript we finished last night. The editor had a few questions. Our meeting continued into the lunch hour, so it was only natural for Hal and I to go to lunch together. I think I knew what was going to happen when Hal chose a restaurant at the Golden Tree Hotel, one of the best restaurants in town. We broke the company rule and drank wine with our meal. For the first hour, we talked mostly business. When it was time to head back to our office, Hal said we probably shouldn't go back with wine breath. With my agreement, he called the office and said we wouldn't be back today. After the call, I asked, "So, what are we going to do with the rest of the day?" Having a conservative dress didn't stop the cheater inside from coming out. Is it all the wine's fault? Why don't we continue what we started last night in one of the rooms? It was a moment of truth. I seemed to be floating outside my wife and mother's body, watching the uncoordinated woman in my seat say, "Okay." My out-of-body self realized that I had just agreed to commit adultery. And I did. It was thrilling primarily because it was another person. I had a few love-making sessions, and he seemed pleased too. But with each step, I felt more and more guilty. He noticed this, so I lied about how wonderful it was. He asked if we would continue to do this on a regular basis. I told him that would be amazing, but I couldn't risk getting caught. I said we should just keep it as one fantastic one time, and that it would never happen again. He was disappointed, but agreed. I'm sure he was hoping to change my mind later. Perhaps he was right. I wasn't sure of that myself. When we got off the elevator, I was sure everyone was looking at me and everyone knew what we had done. I hurried to his car and made my way to mine, parked at work, with a huge sigh of relief. That's when the deluge started. I cried and sobbed over my carelessness. I had betrayed my husband. I had jeopardized my marriage. I jeopardized my family's future, all for some mediocre sex with another man. After crying, I drove home. I didn't know what to do. I got home earlier than usual and did my chores. I needed something, anything, to take my mind off what I had done. I had to keep Rob in the dark. I had to save my marriage. I had to pretend that nothing had happened, but I was only fooling myself. As soon as I saw Rob come in, I burst into tears. "Zeus, what's the matter? What's wrong? Are the boys okay?" Between sobs, I blurted out, "I'm the one in trouble. You lost your job? Had an accident? Now. I'm sure that's something we can figure out together. It can't be that bad." "Oh, yes, it can. Rob, I slept with another man. When I reached out to hug Rob, he backed away." "You... what?" I had sex with another man. I don't love him. I only love you. Please forgive me. It will never happen again. It wasn't supposed to happen the first time, or it wasn't the first time. It was the first, only, and last time. I promise, I promise. I remember you promised that at our wedding. I'm sorry. Your promises don't mean anything anymore. His neck was red with the hives that only appeared during times of extreme stress. I need to get out of here for a while. Don't call me. Please don't leave me. I'll just die. If I stay, you might die. Rob headed for the door. His words sent a chill down my spine. His experience and skills could be used to kill. Physically, it would be easy for him. I fed the boys and let them cross the street and swim with their friends. I didn't even bother to call Carl and Misty. Our kids had a standing invitation to both houses. I used that time to figure out how to convince Rob not to divorce me. When the boys got home and Rob still hadn't returned, I told the boys that he had been called to a security job out of town and might not be back tonight. They accepted my words and went to bed. They stayed up playing video games since there was no school tomorrow. I stayed up playing games in my head like, what will I do if I become a single mom? And, will Rob want to get even or get revenge? And, will he try to do something to Hal? I didn't think about Hal's wife and kids. Of course, Rob wouldn't hurt the kids. I had a harder time explaining why Rob hadn't come home all weekend. Fortunately, the boys played with other kids most of the time. Apparently, Rob used that time to figure out that Hal was my lover, since we worked together late Thursday night. Rob showed up at our office on Monday and asked to meet with Hal. I didn't go to work on Monday because of my ongoing anxiety. Later, Hal told me that Rob seemed calm. Rob said he wanted to apologize for his wife seducing Hal and hoped it wouldn't cause problems that might interfere with my future work. Hal let his guard down and assured Rob that it wouldn't happen. That was all Rob needed to confirm his theory. He stood up and extended his hand to Hal. When Hal returned the favor, Rob grabbed his hand and pulled him to him. A quick punch to the throat incapacitated Hal. As Hal gasped, Rob went around the table and kicked him in the balls, making it hard for Hal to breathe. Several more kicks followed before Rob stopped. He told Hal that he didn't care if he called the police or not. He would tell Hal's wife about our affair and let her listen to the conversation he had just recorded. Rob remarked that after Hal's wife divorced him and Rob divorced me, Hal and I could make love all we wanted. Rob was at Hal's house when he called his wife from the hospital. He had hoped to get his wife ready first, but Rob had already done that. She told Hal not to worry about coming home. The police picked Rob up outside Hal's house, and he offered no resistance. He went to jail on an aggravated assault charge. I visited Rob in jail and offered to bail him out. He refused, saying it was time for each of us to learn to take care of ourselves. I asked him, "What about the boys?" He replied, "You should have thought about that before you decided to be a cheater. I had to live with that while I was growing up. It won't be easy for them, but I got through it. Don't worry, they have the strength to do it." This was a part of Rob's home life that I didn't know anything about before. Rob pleaded guilty. He tried to stop his public defender from using my and Hal's treason as a mitigating factor. He didn't object to prison. He got 18 months, but he only served 6. It was a tough 6 months for me and the boys. I hardly ever saw them because they knew I had cheated on their father, and they always had a house across the street. I didn't file for divorce because I didn't want a divorce. When Rob came home from prison, we didn't talk about my cheating or the reasons I cheated with Hal. Instead, we talked about what was best for the boys. I was pleasantly surprised that he agreed to stay in the house for the boys. He would stay in his den, sleep on the sofa bed, and use the downstairs bathroom. I didn't even dare ask if we could have a sex life again. I knew the answer. What really brought about our formal divorce was that Carl was transferred to another state. Their house was put up for sale, and our children were devastated. This seemed to stress the boys more than the problems Rob and I were having. At first, I didn't know how this situation affected Rob. The first indication of his decision was that he filed for divorce and served me in my office. Hal at this time was busily engaged in divorce proceedings with his wife. I received no warning from Rob. The petition mentioned adultery, although that issue was only appropriate in a divorce to address custody issues. He just wanted to set the record straight. I wasn't that upset. His next move was revealed when the "for sale" sign was removed from Carl and Misty's house. I walked over hoping that meant they were staying. That's when I found out they had sold the house to Rob. I figured it out. It was the perfect solution for Rob. He would see his boys as often as he and they wanted until I objected or sold our house and moved. I would still be their mother with primary custody rights. He was willing to help me with child support and alimony plus support for household expenses. Allowing me to see him and the boys so often in his home was his revenge on me. Smart man. Until he remarries, I've decided to let him know I'm not seeing anyone. I will continue to be flexible with the boys. I will not pressure him. Recently, he has agreed to have lunch with us occasionally. I know part of the reason is because he's a lousy cook. I pray that one of the reasons is that he wants to go back to the old days. Our dinners have started to resemble family gatherings before I became a cheater, so I have hope. Objectively, some people would say I have nothing to complain about. Even though I was a cheating wife, I got the house, child support, and primary custody of the kids. Several women advised him to be more lenient since it was just one mistake I made. Some told me I should obstruct when he asked for the opportunity to spend more time with his boys than I was obligated to give him by court order. I chased those counselors away. Basically, they were trying to convince me to be a fool. I am a cheater, not a fool. The end. Subscribe to my channel. Thank you!